Welcome to Digital Dominators, the podcast that helps small business owners grow their confidence, sharpen their digital skills, and actually enjoy showing up online. I'm Sooz, your host, tech coach, and digital cheerleader, and every week I chat with brilliant experts to bring you practical tips, smart strategies, and the tools and tech to make business easier. From social media marketing to websites, content to confidence, AI to automation, we're breaking it down into simple steps you can actually use. If you're ready to make things simpler and more successful in your digital world, you're in the right place. Let's get stuck in. Welcome back to Digital Dominators, the podcast where we dive into the stories, systems, and digital skills that help you thrive in today's fast-moving world. In this episode, we're going beyond Google Translate and Duolingo streaks to explore how technology can help you really connect with a new language and the people that speak it. Because learning to talk is more than just words. It's about culture, confidence, and conversation. And there's no one better to guide us through that than Katie Gray, the founder of Talking Tourist. Katie is on a mission to change the way that we learn languages. Through Talking Tourist, she's created a platform that connects language learners directly with native speaking teachers, all at the tap of a screen. No classroom pressure, no grammar drills, just real practical conversational practice, wherever you are in the world. With a background in tech and designing customer experiences, Katie blends her love of travel, language, and learning into a service that helps people feel prepared, empowered, and excited to speak in another language. Whether it's for a trip, a move, or just for the joy of it, Katie's approach is all about learning to talk, not just translate. In today's episode, we're talking about why traditional language learning often misses the mark and how tech is closing the gap between the learners and the native speakers, and what it really takes to build confidence in another language. So let's get into it. Hi, Katie.
Thank you for having me on.
Nice to have you here.
Nice to be here.
Yeah, good. So I've given you a lovely bio, and what I always like to do at the start of the podcast is to ask you to tell us a little bit about your background, how you got into developing this platform, and really what you want to achieve with Talking to. Well, maybe we'll come back to that. Just tell us how we got to Talking Tourist.
Yeah, of course. So my background, as you mentioned, I've got a real love for travel from quite a young age. I've always had a bit of an interest in languages from going to Spain with family holidays, but I never really got the opportunity to learn Spanish until I was older. I only learned French at school and I had a bit of an interest in it, but my teacher essentially said I lacked natural talent for the language. So it was one of those things where from a beginning age, I was told I can't do something. And I think for my personality, when I'm told that, it made me want to do it more. There was a chance to do kind of language learning or Spanish on the side of my degree. So I did business studies at university, and there was an opportunity to do Spanish on the side. So that was my first kind of dabble into learning. And that didn't go so well. That was kind of traditional classroom learning. But because it was through university, there was people that were doing it as part of their degree just for an extra credits who essentially were almost fluent already, or in my eyes they were speaking away in Spanish. I didn't even know one word. So there was such a mixed ability of people in the classroom. It completely knocked my confidence from the beginning. And I went to a few classes and then felt like that, I couldn't keep up. So that was how it started. And then just through travel, through having that interest, I started a travel blog and started trying to learn Spanish myself as much as possible. And then it wasn't until I booked my first solo trip abroad to Ecuador. I was wanting to go a bit further afield and I challenged myself. Yeah, quite a long way to go on the first solo travel trip by myself. I had some homestays. So I was in with locals who were speaking Spanish and they didn't speak any English. And it was a real kind of challenge for me I'd learned a little bit through apps and through that kind of language classroom learning, but it wasn't really, it got me started, but wasn't really enough. I felt like I could read it, I knew a little bit, but when it came to actually speaking it, it really wasn't that helpful. So being immersed in the country and learning a little bit kind of got me started. And then when I went on in between that, I went, and then going on a sabbatical, I went on a sabbatical with my husband to all across South America, which was amazing. And that kind of made me realize there was a bit of a niche around learning not just the language. So I felt at that point I had quite a good grasp of speaking Spanish, but realized the differences in especially European Spanish to even all the different countries in South America. There's a lot of colloquialisms, even different words. I think it's like 10 words for car, for example, in across South America and Spain. Just even knowing the differences made me realize there was an opportunity and a bit of a gap in the market, and something that I could kind of start in terms of a business. And I felt passionate about it. I feel like it's something that I'm essentially my ideal customer. And I know they always say you shouldn't design for yourself, but I think getting to that, having struggled with traditional language learning and things, and then kind of putting that to use and actually being able to try and speak it. I think when I went to Colombia, I sat down in a restaurant, for example, and the first thing they said to me was con gusto. And I just froze, and I thought, why are they saying with pleasure to me? It's like the first thing they say. But that's what, in Colombia, that's the first thing they say to you when you go into a restaurant. So I thought, well, this is a good opportunity to actually learn relevant things for your travel. And not everyone wants to learn or can have the time and the funds to learn languages for 5-10 years till they're completely fluent and they know everything perfectly. There's a real opportunity here for myself and for other people to learn enough for their travel and have a conversation and be able to enrich their travel. Of all the places I've visited, I think I've been to over 30 countries in my lifetime. And of all those places, the travel that sticks with me most is going to South America and being able to speak Spanish and having those local experiences, homestays, street parties in Colombia, all that stuff, which I wouldn't really have had the opportunity to do, I think, if I hadn't spoken Spanish. So yeah, I just wanted to kind of open it up, give other people that opportunity, support other people in the journey, and selfishly learn some more languages myself conversationally. I think there's some great other resources out there, which I'm not saying people shouldn't use. I think it's all to use kind of with this. But when it comes to actually using a language, there's lots of places you can learn a language. But when it comes to actually trying to use it, I think trying to bridge the gap between learning and using, getting to that conversation level, the key thing is speaking it and being able to connect with teachers in the quickest, easiest way possible is what I've designed.
Katie, I've been nodding along and smiling at the same time as what you've been sharing there, because that journey to get to the solution is, and as you mentioned there, we shouldn't really design for ourselves, but it's designing for the experience, right? So that's part of your customer experience and designing customer experience, because you've lived it, you've experienced it, and so then you were able to create almost a product service style of what you're doing, to be able to create this talking tourist. So 30 countries,
Yeah, I
most
need
of
to
them.
count.
That's amazing.
Not all of them Spanish speaking. Yeah, I need to
Okay,
count how many. I think I'm on like 30, 33 or 34 or
33.
something. But yeah, mostly I have been to most continents. I think I've done quite a lot of Asia, most of South America, and then quite a bit of Europe and America, Canada. So yeah, and quite a bit in Africa as well. So yeah, I think Antarctica haven't managed to make it there yet, but
Too cold. Too cold.
I've
No.
done I've done quite a lot of travel. I'm really passionate about. I love just going to new places, meeting new people, and having new
Mhm.
experiences.
I think that I resonate with that so much as well. That somebody that's lived and worked in another country, and the same way I went to Japan, so the other side, you went to Ecuador, you don't speak the language. And the biggest challenge there was being able to understand what was happening within the environments that you were in. So one example for me, you gave that a great example of when you went to Colombia and you went to the restaurant and they said, it's a pleasure to you. So in Japan, there's a thing that the shop workers say when you go into a shop, and it's irashaimase, which means like welcome to my welcome to my shop. And I thought I had to say it back to them. So I'm
Oh,
going irashaimase back to them. And so I'm actually telling them welcome to my shop.
oh, that's sweet.
So they're like, okay, silly foreigner, like, what are you doing? But this is why what you're doing is super important, because if I had known that before I'd
Yeah,
went to Japan, probably wouldn't have put myself in that situation. But
yeah,
again, that's only something that you would learn after being in that country, because it's not in the textbooks, it's not in the standardized traditional way of language learning, right? That kind
yeah,
of curriculum based, that kind of structure. Here's the grammar, here's the sentence structure, here's the vocabulary, put it together and try and have a conversation around it, right? So I love that what you're doing. You are connecting speakers with learners to help them understand those colloquialisms. So let's talk about what that looks like from a tech perspective. How does that work on the Talking Tourist? How does that work?
yeah. So in terms of the tech, for customers, it's a very simple booking process. If you go onto the homepage, you select what language you're looking to learn and for which destination. So I really wanted to focus on that travel element and make sure that it was focused around not just having, as mentioned, not just having Spanish teachers, but selecting that, I want to learn Spanish for my trip to Mexico, and then it will show you relevant Mexican Spanish teachers rather than all teachers. Whereas other kind of platforms, you have perhaps thousands of teachers shown, all kind of seemingly looking the same, and it's kind of, you're not going to get that what's the word, the tailored
Yeah.
element of that. So it presents you with kind of Mexican teachers for that example, and then from there you can see more on their profile. If you want to, you can see, it presents you with their price, so you can see if it fits your budget. Choose the teacher that fits the budget for you for a 50-minute lesson. And then you can also see their profile to see what their kind of background education is. It has a nice little video so they can introduce themselves. And so that's step one, just choosing a teacher. Step two, you've got where you can, it has essentially a very short trip form. So we have some icons which kind of say, what kind of trip are you going on? Is it an occasion? Is it a wedding? Is it a volunteering for work? So the teacher gets an idea of what type of trip it is. And then it asks you, what would you like to learn conversation for? So to that point, it's got tick boxes you can tick. So you want to learn slang words, you want to learn go into a restaurant. I think everyone has very different ideas of what they like doing on a trip. So someone might want to go to local markets, kind of stay in hostels, backpacking, versus someone else that might stay in kind of a hotel, go to fancier restaurants. It can be a completely different trip. And I think for that, you would need to learn such different conversation. So for the teacher knowing what kind of trip you're going on, what thing you're looking to learn, then they tailor your lesson based around that. And then the last question is, and also just ask you when you're going on your trip, so they, the time frame. And the last question is just, what's your current level of conversation skills? So it asks you, can you say a few words? Can you say a few phrases? Can you speak for a period of time? And then that helps the teacher understand where you're at. I think the difference between Talking Tourist and other learning services is it doesn't focus on what level are you in traditional language terms, so A1, B1, C.
Yeah,
There's kind of if you're taking exams, you have to get to a certain level.
that's right.
I think that from speaking to a lot of other learners, the main challenge they have is they may have reached a certain level through months and years of lessons, but if someone said something to them in Spanish or asked them to speak Spanish, they still feel the fear and they feel the uncertainty of being able to pull a sentence together in real time. So yeah, it's designed around tailoring to your trip and the conversation level. And then the next steps are choosing your availability and choosing the package next. So do you want to do one lesson, which is I call kind of the conversation starter, and that's just like conversation taster lesson or a top up. You do 5 lessons, which is conversation starter. So if you're wanting to go for a bit longer than just a weekend away, then I'd advise kind of a 5 lessons, and then the conversation club, which is 10 lessons. So if you really wanted to get conversational for your trip, then that's kind of the package that's offered. So choose your package, and then the last step is your availability, the availability in time. So the tech, what that enables is it'll tailor to your time zone, so you can select where you want to take the lesson. So if you are currently in one location, but you know you're gonna say if you were on a sabbatical and you were going to be traveling around, you could be in Mexico, but you know you're going to go to Argentina next or Colombia next, and you could select if you know you're going to be moving, you can select the time zone you're going to take the lesson in, and then it adjusts the time availability for the teacher for you there. And what's also good is if you've selected a package, like a 5 lesson package, you only have to choose your time and date for the first lesson, and then the rest are just available in your customer dashboard. And then you can book them as and when it's convenient, because trying to book 5 lessons in advance is not exactly easy to think about when you're available. But also you can change the time zone. So if you are moving around, when you book that next lesson, you can select any time zone you want and it will show you the availability. So the tech's very flexible to allow you to be a digital nomad or move around, which is what the target audiences will be doing. And then once you've booked your lesson, it takes you straight into the custom dashboard where you'll see you are learning Spanish for your trip to Mexico, and then it's got your lesson presented there with just a very simple join lesson button. So when it comes to the lesson, you can just log back in or go through an email reminder, click on the join lesson button. It takes you straight into our kind of virtual whiteboard, which is integrated in. It's a company called Lesson Space. So it's essentially Zoom's like an online lesson platform. With your camera, with the chat functionality, with a virtual whiteboard, so the teacher can share their screen or they can actually draw on the whiteboard and explain things. There's also emojis so they can celebrate when you said something correctly. So that's a really good kind of tech that I've integrated into the website. And once you're in your customer dashboard, you can also message the teacher before your lesson if you've forgotten to add something on to the trip form, or you wanted to just say hello or ask them a question about how things work before the lesson starts. I'm just trying to think if there's any other kind of tech in there to bring out, but they're the kind of main functionality. And I think it's just in terms of the steps, trying to make the booking process as streamlined, as simple as possible. So it's just 5 steps. It's very quick to do. We all know that everyone's time is precious and limited, so it's quick to book. And then there's plenty of email reminders before and a quick way in to join the lesson, on your lunch break or whenever it is that you're taking that lesson. You can take your lesson from anywhere as long as you've got internet connection. You can take it on your desktop, or you can take the lesson on your phone if you want to. So yeah, just making that as simple as possible really for people.
What you've done is described a really clear customer journey there, and what you've done is you've put the customer at the front of that, because it's almost like you've got 2 customers in a way, but they're not. So you've got the teacher, you've got the provider, and you've got that customer that's coming in to experience the learning experience. And you've really made that a simple, a clear process, which you've planned out. But then it's getting the tech to match that, right? So I assume that when you've thought about this journey of setting up Talking Tourist, a lot of that was really mapping out that customer journey and that user experience. Can you explain a little bit about how you kind of mapped that out for people that are thinking about a tech solution? How do you go into that customer journey? Because that's your background, right? You've got experience in customer journeys, and you've got your experience of what that was like on the other side of. So how have you went through that plus marrying it up with the tech?
Yeah, so I think one of the simplest and most effective ways to do this, and the way that I kind of started, was wireframing. So you can do wireframing. Not everyone might be familiar with the terminology. You can do it kind of in on your computer, but the best place to start is just get a blank sheet of paper and draw out.
That's exactly what we do in our training. So our innovation training, they get 6 screens and they've got to design one customer journey. And that's really the best way. Pens and paper
Yeah,
on it,
best place to
describe
start.
that just customer journey. Yeah. As a creator, I used to spend hours re-recording voiceovers to get the perfect tone. But finding reliable voice talent, booking studio time, and editing takes forever, and it can break the bank. That's why I recommend 11 Labs. It generates ultra-realistic AI voices and even clones your own, all in seconds. With natural-sounding speech, multilingual support, and seamless text-to-speech conversion, 11 Labs powers podcasts, audiobooks, training modules, and more. No mic required. Ready to level up your audio? Try it free today at allmylink.me/TC11labs and bring your scripts to life with 11 Labs.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I've got a million here, like post-it notes. I'm holding them up if I know you're just listening in. But I've got all these post-it notes. Post-it notes are brilliant as well, but starting with blank piece of paper, thinking through what are all the different steps, and once, because when you think about it, you think, oh, that seems quite simple. But when you actually put pen to paper, draw out what do I think all the touch points are, then you realize, oh, I haven't thought about this, and then being able to put like post-it notes on with questions, things that you still need to think about, how does this connect, and then you can move things around. I think having something like post-its enables you to change like the order of things. And to be honest, I'm still, even though I've got my website and I've got my steps up, I think it's still an evolving process.
Yeah.
It might be that I think it works better if the trip form comes at the end, or this and that. Like, the more part of designing a service and thinking about customer experiences is continual optimization and thinking through, when you get feedback, does it still work in the best way? So I think starting with what you think works the best and what is a good flow is a good starting point, and then continuing to evolve it. In terms of like the teacher experience, I did quite a lot of research on existing platforms that are currently available that aren't, they're not niche. So my business is quite different from theirs, but they're just like standard, you learn in Spanish. They're teachers that are on those platforms and kind of looked at like what is it they're complaining about, what is it they're not happy about, and it was things like not being able to set their own price, or not being able to have like time in between lessons to be able to do lessons back to back. So I've purposely designed my lessons to be like 50 minutes, for example, so that a teacher can have a lesson back to back and have a break in between, and that it's something that from a customer perspective, it's long enough but short enough. It's long enough to get a good lesson, but it's short enough that they could fit it into a lunch hour or after work or before work. So it's really just thinking through those questions and looking at what are people talking about in kind of forums. Another thing was teachers have on other platforms giving away free lessons all the time, and they weren't getting paid for that. So even on my website, I've made that decision that even if there was free lessons offered, it would always come from the business, not from the teacher. So whatever price the teacher sets, they will always get that full amount. So it's making those teachers because the whole purpose of the business and the value is around, respecting the place that you're going to and the locals, and getting more from that conversation in that country, and leaving the place better than when you kind of found it. I needed to bring that through in my design for the teachers on the platform as well, and make sure that they're being respected for their time and their
experience
knowledge
as well. Yeah,
exactly. So they set their price, they set their availability, their if there's any discounts, it's coming from the platform, not from the teacher. So I just wanted to make sure that in every touch point of my design that it was thought. But yeah, going back to your original question, wireframing to begin with, and then bringing it on to something. I really like Miro as a thing to map out your customer journey.
I'll
Also
just spell that out
Figma.
for people. It's Miro, and then
Yeah,
Figma is Figma. So those are
yeah,
two wireframing tools that you can use.
yeah.
Also,
I'm
whiteboards
not.
and other stuff that
I
you
was
can
going to
do
say
too.
there's some basic ones probably even on your computer. I think there's
I know.
Microsoft Whiteboard that you can do,
We
which is
used to use
already on there.
Jamboard, but that's gone now. Google got rid of that
Yeah.
last October. So everything that we did on Jamboards, which was great because in schools, that was a collaborative process. The kids could go and work on a Jamboard together. They got rid of it. So it means you need to use pay tools now, which is rubbish.
The Miro has a free, if you're only doing one board, and you can actually get a lot onto a board, and they have templates. If you've never done this before, you can select a template and it'll
Mm-hmm.
show kind of customer journey steps or whatever it is you're trying to map out. You can begin with a template and then just fill it in.
Yeah.
But definitely start with drawing it out and then doing user research, showing your drawings. So one of the things I did was show kind of early sketches and things to potential customers and got feedback on it. And even when I had the website up and running, just getting that feedback continually on what works, what doesn't work. I think it's just an evolving process.
It's keeping the users involved on both sides, right?
Yeah.
You've got your two customer sets almost. You've got your learners and you've got your teachers, but it sounds like you've really involved them as part of that design process and really thought about that design thinking process. And I love how you've actually used the design thinking process as part of it. So that kind of one customer journey, one problem, defining that problem, coming up with a solution, and then testing and prototyping, getting feedback, and then changing it to adapt that way. So it's really incredible to see that in practice. What we teach in technology coaching, whether or not you know that you've done that or not, is really, really fantastic to see that you've designed such a fantastic experience for it as well. Now, we know that tech can sometimes be the challenge when it comes to designing a solution as well. And a lot of that is that we don't know what tech can actually do. We know that we want it to provide that solution and we don't have the skills ourselves. So, how have you, and if you're okay talking about it, how have you approached the challenges that have come across when you've dealt with the tech? If you want to go into it, let's talk about it.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Tech's incredible when it works, but when it doesn't work or you're still kind of learning, it can be a challenge. So I at the beginning when I had my travel blog, I started out on using Bluehost and WordPress, and I slowly kind of educated myself on, did a lot of test and learn on how to create a page, create a post, move things around. I'd spend kind of hours like doing really small things and learning that. So that was kind of my early kind of knowledge building. But then when I wanted to bring it into this Talking Tourist business, I decided to stick with WordPress because I knew the back end system
Yeah,
better than any other, kind of provider. So I wanted to have that, even though I knew I was going to get some tech support, I wanted to have I didn't want to feel out of control. I wanted to
exactly.
know that it's something that I could amend and change things as and when going forward. So I went with WordPress. I used Upwork, which is kind of a kind of freelancer thing to get support on getting the initial booking process and things integrated. That was beyond my tech knowledge. So I got a team through Upwork to kind of create that for me. And I think I had the option of a lower price or a higher price. And to be honest, they always say if it's too good to be true, don't believe it. And I should have gone with that. So I went for something that a team that kind of offered a lot for
Yeah.
not that much money. And they did a great job at kind of bringing my wireframes to life. And I did all the branding to use my brand colors and everything like that. So it was just pretty much translating it onto the screen. But the main challenge that I found was that it's with tech, I feel like you don't know what you don't know. So until something
Yeah.
happens, you don't necessarily know that you're doing it wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't know to ask for it to not be hard coded,
Mm-hmm.
but everything down to even the content on the homepage was completely hard coded, which meant that when they finished and I wanted to change something, I would have had to pay for every small amendment, which just wasn't feasible going forward. So I'm now working with a solo developer in the UK who is brilliant, and she's helped me to bring the website, so utilizing plugins.
Yes.
I was using some plugins before, but the team had hard coded the kind of booking process in. So there's an amazing plugin called Amelia, which I know you've heard of,
Yeah, we
which can
talked
do a
about
lot of
that.
things. Yeah, I love Amelia now. So that's where my kind of booking process is integrated using that plugin, and it just means that, if there's any updates, then any changes, any kind of future evolvements, then evolvements, that's not a word.
Yeah, changes.
I'm just
There we go.
creating new words. Yeah. Then it means that it's updated. So yeah, use of plugins definitely has helped to ease the pain of technology changes, and then just having someone that you can communicate really well with. My developer's brilliant, and I'm able to clearly communicate with her. Ironically, with the business being all about communication, I struggled with the communication with the team that I had initially building my website. And that was created that bit of that barrier with technology. So I'm at the stage now where she does the more complex things, but she's helping me to make sure that I can change and amend things as and
Yeah.
when myself, because I think that's really important with technology
Yeah, I
when things
agree.
are challenging.
Firstly, thank you so much for sharing your journey, because I know this just for what it is that we do, technology coaching, is that is so common, that experience that you've had. Not only have we experienced it here at Technology Coaching, but this is what most people come, and they come to Tackle Your Tech Tuesdays to kind of talk about these things as well, right? The
Which is
tech.
an amazing session, by the way. Anyone that's listening, go to Tackle Your Tech Tuesdays. That's a mouthful.
Thanks, Katie.
And
It's great.
Sooz will help you out. She'll sort
Yeah,
you out.
this is great because it really is about just, okay, how do we get those plugins to, or how do we get the technology to work in a way for us and not us working for the technology, right? And that is the challenge when we are putting what we've developed and created and our ideas, our thoughts. As a business owner, it's all of our amazing ideas, right? Through the solutions that we want to provide, right? That problem. We give that control over, it's a part of control thing, over to the technology to get it to work. And we put it in the hands of other people to do that for us. And the problem is what, again, you've experienced, I've experienced, and I know that a lot of people listening and watching will have experienced as well, is that it doesn't work out. It's not right. And hard coding is one of the biggest problems. Hard coding and server hogging. I don't know if that's the right word to use to it, but I like to think of it that way. People that create a business, they say they need a website, and then the developers hold on to that asset. They've basically claimed that asset for that business. It's like keeping them to ransom almost.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that is the experience of most business owners. The people host their website, they can't make changes to it. You have to charge to get any changes to it. And you'd already made that decision of using WordPress. You want the flexibility to be able to adapt it, to be flexible, which is what WordPress will do outside other web builder tools. That's why people build on WordPress, because the plugins, the attachments that you can add to it, you can make it like your, I've just talked about this on another episode, but like the felt boards, and you can build them up as you want to, or like a
Yeah.
Lego set, you can build it as you want to. But when it's hard coded, it's like super gluing it together. It's very difficult to separate those pieces in that way. So thank you
Yeah.
for sharing that. So what you've done using Amelia, which for those that don't know what Amelia is, it's a booking system plugin tool that you can add into WordPress, and it's a really great customer journey that's built out as part of it. So your wireframe to then lead into a tool that matches that just shows the importance of taking that step back, right? Taking the step back, designing it, thinking about the customer in mind, and not just purely on what the fancy stuff that the tech can do in that way as well. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And I was going to say the other tool that I didn't mention, but Elementor, which is
Elementor Builder.
essentially within WordPress. It's a tool you can use a free version, or you can do an advanced one, and it's building blocks essentially, isn't it? So you can
That's
add
right.
in different building blocks of a page, and create and build that page up yourself without needing someone to code anything. And
Yeah.
that's been amazing. So I'm essentially redoing most of my pages to match Elementor so that everything is completely customizable. I think I was thinking about my website, and it feels similar to when you move into a new house. So I moved into a new house 2 years ago, and there's still so much left that I want to do on the
Yeah.
house, but you do it kind of room by room. It's such a big thing that you do it room by room. And then by the time you finish all the rooms, I imagine I'll probably want to start again and do like it'll be 10 years and I'll want to refresh a room. So I think a website's similar in that is evolving all the time. And even when you feel like you finished it, you probably want to redo the thing you started at the
Yeah,
beginning.
because it changes and develops as the business evolves as well, and you've got it set up that you're getting that customer feedback and that user feedback at all times. So you have to be able to change it and adapt it to make it work for you, your customers, and the way that the technology is moving towards it as well, because it's ever evolving, as we know, right? So let's add that AI into it, those two letters that are on the tip of everyone's tongues at the moment. So, Duolingo, this is, I know people, those that are listening and watching this, you might or might not know this already, but this week, just Duolingo announced that they are getting rid of their contractors and using AI agents as part of their business going forward. So they're going to be an AI business. And I shared this with you, Katie, and you were like, oh my goodness. So, what are your thoughts around AI in language learning? And I think, how do you feel that Talking Tourist fits within that space?
Yeah, I am, to be honest, I'm gobsmacked that they're doing that. I think it's a huge mistake that they're doing that, because I know it's going to save them money, and they're obviously very successful. And I do love Duolingo. I think it's great for a certain part of learning. I think it's perfect for like the start of your learning journey, dabbling to see if you're interested in that language, how difficult it can be. Although I think for the start, when you start the learning journey with them, it doesn't focus on the key things you need to learn. It focuses on very random things, but it
Yeah,
can give you an
nouns.
idea of if you like that. Yeah, if you think that's something you want to continue and try. But to be honest, they're completely, they've got such a good app, but if they move towards AI, they're losing the essence of why people learn a language in the first place, and it is to be able to communicate with other people. So if it's AI driven, it's really no different to someone just using Google Translate. Why not just use the Translate app on their phone and just type it in or speak it and use it that way? Why would they even need to use Duolingo? So it's almost like they're almost cutting themselves out of the process, it feels like. And why kind of Talking Tourists is different and kind of is beneficial and completely opposite to that is you're actually speaking to real humans. So it's like we're having this one-to-one conversation now. It's a very similar setting with your teacher, but they already know what it is you're looking to learn, what your trip is about, and I make sure as well, the one thing I didn't mention in my design is that they always have a buffer of time. You can't just book a lesson an hour before, for example. They have that little bit of buffer to be able to receive your information, tailor and create a lesson
Yeah, great.
around the conversation they think you need to learn. So it's
Mm-hmm.
not just a bot that's churning something
I
out.
can't tell you how great that is. So, for somebody that taught English in Japan for 4 years, and the first company that I went out with, there were 40-minute sessions, and you would
Mm.
just go back to back with a group of either maximum 4 or 5, but you would be going a group of 2, 1, 4, 5. And then if you weren't, our marketing, we had to go and stand outside and hand out tissues to people.
Wow, tissues.
Well, it's a cultural thing. So
Okay,
it's the gift. So it's a little
nice.
pack of their advertising tissues that we've had to
Okay,
give out.
okay.
But yeah, having that break in between really puts that teacher at the heart of it as well, because how can they effectively learn or sorry, guide that learner if they don't have the ability to go through what they want to learn before, and provide that
Yeah, exactly.
experience? You've really put customer experience at the focus of this. And I really think that in the world of AI, and I do talk about this a lot, is that it's our human innateness that is really going to be the most important in the world of language learning models. Language learning as in being different than actual this language learning, but it's the importance of us being human in that space. And Talking Tourist provides that opportunity for humans to connect and learn from each other in that way.
Yeah. I think the key thing to add is that the lesson enables you with the teacher to actually hear and react to and understand their dialect that they have, and before you arrive in that country to actually recognize what a sentence sounds like in Spanish or in Mexican Spanish and Argentinian Spanish. For just a very simple example, and why there's that niche, why I've broken it down into destination, and eventually I'd love to break it down even further into specific areas. Just a very simple sentence where you'd say "Me llamo Katie," which is my name is Katie, in kind of, I guess you would say, standard Spanish. If you go to Argentina, it's "Me llamo Katie." It sounds
That's very
like a
different.
different word, but
Yeah.
it's exactly the same. And it's they in Argentina that they pronounce the double L as a sh sound.
Okay.
And when that's brought into a full sentence, it's not. It can be kind of not off-putting, but if you're not familiar with it, you can think, "What? I don't understand. What's being said." So it's having that personalization, and you cannot get that at all through something like Duolingo,
No.
especially using AI. You would never get that. So you would learn that what you felt was a good level of Spanish, get to Argentina and have no idea probably what was being said, be able to react and respond to that. So I think that's really around that practicing real life conversational scenarios and getting used to what a response might be and how you might reply to that in a kind of safe environment where it doesn't matter. I think I put on my website, mojitos and mistakes are welcome.
Yeah.
So you can
I
bring your
think the
mojito, you're at home,
mistakes are
you
the
can
only
bring
way
them.
that we learn in language
Yeah,
learning. And
yeah,
I take that as being the same across any type of learning. We only learn through mistakes. So we have to do the mistakes to be able to develop it and change it
yeah,
from there.
yeah. But I love that example you said in Japan. I love that shop example, and
God,
that's what the
that's
cheat
one of
sheet that I'll
many.
talk about. See, talk about at the end. That's something that you would have on a
Yeah,
cheat sheet. I've got it in there around your shop assistant. What will they ask you? What might they respond? And I think things like that are just really helpful to have. So thanks for sharing. That was
I
that
think
example.
it's great because what you're doing is providing what I'm trying to explain this effectively to people that maybe don't understand what it's like to go and live in another country or to go and experience of a longer than just a tourist trip, if that makes sense. Where you're going for a week, if you're going to immerse yourself in a country, you really want to involve in the conversations. You want to be part. You want to go and understand the culture a little bit more. And that comes through communication and talking with people, creating that space where people can learn those kind of colloquialisms in that way. So I learned to speak Japanese just through conversation. I didn't have any learning before I went. I had a little bit of learning when I was out there, but the Japanese I spoke was purely conversational, and that was just from being in the environments that I was in and learning from the other people that were around me. But if I was to go anywhere else in Japan, I would say it differently because, like, Osaka speaks differently than in Tokyo. The Tokyojins and Osakajins speak very differently. And it's the same in English, right? So I have a Glasgow accent on the west of Scotland. Hopefully, not too strong a Glasgow accent that people can understand me. But my accent had to change and evolve as I lived abroad, and I spoke differently so that people could understand me. But when people are learning English, that's the challenges that they have. But
Mm.
they don't understand how we say things differently from each other. And that's a problem that you're solving through talking tourists, is by giving people almost regional
Yeah,
opportunities,
regional dialects. Yeah.
regional dialects. And as we know, English language is evolved through the generations as well. So now we've got this whole Gen Z speak and how they use colloquialisms. Are you finding that you have a range of age with your teachers to be able to provide different type of language depending on that? Or like how do you approach that type of like really unique colloquialisms. I don't know if I'm describing the question well enough, but you know
No,
what I
I know what
mean.
you're saying.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, definitely. I think, to be honest, that's something that I will and want to tackle going forward. Is this is like, I'm in the earlier stages of the business where I've got a few destinations, a few teachers for each destination, and the next step beyond the country is, and what I've tried to do with my teachers is make sure that I have teachers from different areas. So like the main, Mexico City, from Durango in the north, Veracruz kind of on the coast.
Okay.
I want to kind of eventually have more teachers spread around. And then I think the next layer would be looking at, as you say, age, the spread of age. I guess there's so many different variants you could apply to it. But I think it's, if you've got a teacher that is living in that country and is familiar and aware of the new ways of saying things or the changes, then I think that's the key thing, really.
Yeah.
I mean, to try and, it's definitely a good question. I think it's something that I will
I
consider
don't know
going
what the
forward.
answer is as
But
well, but
yeah,
I think if you're able to converse on a conversational base, so what I mean is like go to a shop, have a chat with the staff in a restaurant, have some banter with the waiter, speak to other people that are there. That's where you learn those colloquialisms. But if you're able to start those conversations by having conversational language that you're understanding what's in how they speak in that area, that's where you start that process
yeah,
completely.
definitely.
Have you done the same? Have you, sorry, experienced the same? So I, at a lot of events that you're going to that are in the kind of tech sphere, I've met a lot of well, people that are wanting to develop AI solutions when it comes to language learning. So they want to create either translation apps or conversational translation apps where right outside kind of Google Translate, and they've got problems with it, or I'm looking at it from a tech and understanding that kind of language learning as well, is don't think it's there yet. How does it handle those colloquialisms? Right, so an example is I've got a handful of AI generation tools for AI avatars, I voice generators, I like cloning systems, and they can't handle my accent. It can't handle the intonations, the tone of voice, because there's not enough data out there to handle the Scottish accent, right? It can't do it, it can't cope. How do you,
Breaking it.
yeah, I sound either Irish or English or a combination of the two with a bit of an American put in there as well. So I don't know, is that how I sound normally? It just doesn't sound like me. So it's not there yet. Where do you see the future of AI generative tools when it comes to language learning? Yeah, what do you think is going to happen with that in the future?
I think there's definitely a clear path that is going to happen, but I do think it's going to take a bit of like a long time, and I don't think it's going to be for everyone. So I think with language learning, and actually when I first started this business and spoke to different mentors, and one of them did say to me, is this going to be taken over by essentially AI tools or they didn't say AI at the time, but technology tools in kind of 10 years or so. But I think for language learning, something like an earpiece, and I think this technology is already available.
I've
So
seen that.
earpiece where you'd literally just someone speaking to you, and they will also have to have an earpiece, and you speak in your language, they speak in their language, and it comes in through
Yeah,
your language into your ear. Amazing piece of technology. It would completely replace any need to learn a language. However, it's one of those things where for the technology to be affordable enough for everyone to have an earpiece, and then for especially a lot of the country, so take South America for example, to get to the point where everyone in South America is going to have an earpiece, just feels
yeah,
just unrealistic and a very long way away, and a lot of people wouldn't even have that kind of interest. So if you need both parts of the technology, that's the only thing I could see that would completely replace the need for something like Talking Tourist. Everything else is like, there's some really great apps where you can text and you can practice conversation essentially through text or even through kind of speaking, but it's still to an AI. and it's not really going to be able to mimic
No,
true kind of
no.
conversation dialects, all of that.
Look,
So I'm not too worried.
what I'm with you as well. So in Japan, I worked in an eikaiwa, which is a conversation school, right? Because they are taught to read and write English. They're not taught to speak it. So we're there to learn them how to speak English. Now, a lot of what I taught with the advanced students were things around a verb and a preposition together, right? So, for example, to get up or to get out, to get in. They have lots of different meanings, and you can say it in lots of different sentence structures, right? So I could say get out is somebody to leave the area, or I need to get out of a situation, right? Which is very different, but the sentence can be used in the same way. So that is the importance of communicating with a person when it comes to language learning, and not a tool, because the tool will take it without the context around it.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've definitely used like Google Translate to check things before, but I've known that okay, that actually means something completely different. You could easily say things that you don't really know what you're saying, and it can be misunderstood.
Mm-hmm.
Even I think there's I don't probably shouldn't say, I think I was gonna say I don't know if I should say the word on the podcast, but the verb means I think it's like to take, and it's in Spain, it's used quite commonly in Spain. So like to take a bus, you would use this verb. But if you use the same verb in South America, it means to, I don't know how to say this,
Nope, just say it.
to make, essentially to make love.
Uh-huh. Well, that's lovely.
So
Yeah.
but
Uh-huh.
it's in a derogatory kind of term, so
Okay.
it's not used in the same way, and it's something to be really aware of. But if you just put into translate, because in Google Translate it's only European Spanish, so if you put
Mm-hmm.
it in, it will give you that verb. But if you were to use that in most South American countries, you would get some
Yeah.
funny looks. So yeah, things like that, tools just can't really pick up. And
No.
maybe they will evolve, but they would need a lot of human
Yeah, they need
learning and interaction to get
exactly. They need the
there.
data for it, which again, in the same way we talked about the wearable tech that you wear in your ears, we would need people to be able to invest in that tool. Time, money, speaking, all of that into the tools to be able to make these things work. And it might be 10, 20 years' time that will be the norm. But right now, we're not at that place for it. We still need to learn to speak to each other as humans, isn't it? Brilliant. Okay, Katie, I'm going to ask you to share 3 tips with people about either language learning, what they can do with talking tourist, or as a business owner, how do you get started with coming up with a customer journey, implementing that to solve a problem? Whatever you want to share, this is your opportunity.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you. Oh, sorry, I forget I need to bring my headset up. So I think the first thing I'd probably say, or the most important thing with language learning, is just to kind of go for it, to practice it, and to give it a go, because one of those things where I think language learning, it's not linear. So you could learn a language in a school or through an app or something for kind of 3 years, and then hope think that you can speak it. I think with other, if you're learning another skill, you would expect if you've learned something for 3 years that you would be able to do it pretty well. But I think for language learning, it's an evolving process where you have to kind of try and do that early. Something that I definitely did as a language learner early on was kind of say, I'll speak it when I've learned this bit, or I'll just learn my past tense first. I'll just
Yes.
want to do this grammar. And you felt
We do that with
once you've read,
everything, don't we? I'll just do it.
yeah,
I'll just do
I'll
it
just
later.
I'll do
Right.
it when, yeah. So
Uh-huh.
it's like you feel like you need to get to a certain level before you can do it. But actually, we don't hand like a grammar book to babies and say like, read this back to back before speaking anything. They learn through listening and practicing and speaking and trial and error. So I'd say my number one tip is just start today. Like, start just around your house, kind of looking at things, like literally babble away as best you can. That's kind of tip number one. I'd say tip number two is, and this is something you can get from the cheat sheets that I'm offering kind of at the end of this call, it for free is having those basic conversational phrases in your back pocket just to get you started. Learning key ones like como se dice, which means how do you say, and then you'd say an English word. So like como se dice technology en español. Being able to say that, it means that you can start a conversation, and then if you don't know the word for something, you're speaking to a local, you can use that phrase, they'll teach you the word, and then you can build on your knowledge or kind of try and talk around it as much as possible. So learning some key things that will kind of help get you by. And then I think the third tip would be have something set in mind. So I think most people, and I've been guilty of this myself, it's the goal is I want to learn Spanish. But actually, do you want to learn Spanish? What do you want to learn Spanish for? The Talking Tourist is very much for people that want to learn Spanish for travel. So they're interested in travel, or they're going to live abroad, or they're doing sabbatical. They want to learn it and communicate it and get to that speaking ability. There's no point learning Spanish, learning to read and write Spanish and being in Spain and not being able to use it. So having that clear goal and the timeline of I'm going to Spain in September, that will really help motivate you and give you a clear place to kind of start from. And when you go to Spain, use what you know, try it, build on it, and then come back, do continue your learning and book that next trip and, build on it next time. It doesn't need to be everything at once. Yeah, I'd say they're my three tips for kind of language learning.
It's brilliant, and the whole process making it as easy as possible for you, which is what you've done through Talking Tourist. So Katie mentioned there she's got a free Spanish cheat sheet for you to download. It's available on her website at talkingtourist.com/free-spanish-cheat-sheet, and I will put that in the show notes and underneath this recording, so you'll be able to access that there. You can reach out with Katie on her socials at Talking Tourist, or on LinkedIn at Katie Gray. If you've got questions around what that journey looks like for you, if you're looking for some support, I'm sure Katie will help you out with that as well, because you've been through it, you know what it's like, and I think we're in that space of knowledge sharing, aren't we, too?
Yeah, definitely. I've got on my website, if you want to contact, you can book in a 15-minute call, 30-minute call just for a chat if you're not sure how many lessons you might want to take, what teacher to go with, any of those questions, or even just how things work. Happy to chat that through.
Amazing.
And yeah, just on the cheat sheet, just to say there's three cheat sheets for different destinations, and just making sure it brings in that kind of colloquialism.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for joining me today, Katie. I could talk to you for ages because we've got lots to talk about.
Thank you.
Thanks, Katie. Take care. Bye. Thanks for listening to Digital Dominators. I hope today's episode gave you something practical, or at least a bit of a boost to keep things going in this mad digital world. If you're enjoying the podcast, hit subscribe so you don't miss what's coming up. There's loads more good stuff on the way and some brilliant guests lined up too. And if you fancy going a bit deeper, come and join the Digital Dominators community. It's totally free, and it's where I share bonus trainings, podcast extras, and tools to help you build confidence with your digital skills. You'll also get access to my social media prompt calendar, so you can finally stop staring at that blank screen wondering what to post. Just head to technologycoachingonline.com/digital dominators to get started. Alright, that's it from me just now. Stay curious, keep showing up, and I'll catch you in the next one.